Time to get back on wrenching on this thing. I'm not just wearing these sunglasses to be like a cool guy. It's actually pretty bright. But first, I want to thank today's video sponsor, which is Raid Shadows Legend. It's an incredibly impressive RPG game that just came out for smartphones, tablets, and stuff like that. But really, it's more comparable to what you would see on a PC or a console. When I first saw ads for this game, I thought, man, I don't think my PC is going to be strong enough. I don't know if the graphics card's going to be able to handle that kind of game. And I was like, oh wait, I can play it on my phone and it's free. You'll see right away that the graphics are really, really good. And the storyline, it can match it. There's tons of battles and champions to choose from. Here, check out a few of mine. Look at these graphics. The detail is really, really good. Raid Shadow Legends, it just came out. It's still a new game, but it's growing really, really fast. So you definitely want to go ahead and start playing it right now so you don't get behind. Besides, there's a special launch tournament that's about to happen really, really soon. And I'm told they've got some pretty wild prizes. Join my clan. It's called Backhand. I didn't name it. We're a small clan, but a proud clan. So join that right away so we can build that up together. Go to the description of this video right now and download Raid Shadow Legends and you'll get 50,000 silver. You'll also get an epic champion completely for free. But you have to use the link in the description or it won't work. So download Raid Shadow Legends now. Today's video, I'm going to focus on putting a different upper triple up here. I got this really cool with a steering stabilizer, and then we'll do a bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of little odds and ends I want to get to. I think where we left off last time was that this thing was broken. Trail Tech sent me on a new one right away. There it is. That's done, easy enough. Check this out, Lunatic Racing. These guys make steering stabilizers, and they're not just normal steering stabilizers. Check this out, dude. Steering stabilizer built into the upper triple. Steering stabilizer is basically this hydraulic thing that's going to slow down the speed at which the bars can sort of turn back and forth. Normally with these steering stabilizers, you have to have the bars real high, or you have to put it up on top, which that always seems kind of dangerous to me. So they've actually internally built this into one that specifically fits this bike. It actually has a on-off switch, and you can kind of roll it in the middle here and get sort of 50%. I've never seen a steering stabilizer with this, and I think especially when it comes to like a Supermoto, a dual sport bike, you're going to want the ability to throw it off real fast if you're in really slow kind of technical stuff where you're having to move the bars quickly. Give this a quick little look through here. The next thing in instructions is to pull this off and inspect all the bearings. We literally just replaced the bearings and greased them, so we're good on that. Now you're supposed to install this. Normally this thing would sit something like this, but obviously that's going to be in our way, so it says to put on and rotate to the left. You can actually feel like it kind of notches in all of a sudden. So we'll go ahead and put our dipstick back in. It says not to tighten it at this point. I almost think I maybe should leave the dipstick out for a moment. Maybe I'll put like a little rag in there, because I have a feeling that as we're installing everything, this might get rotated around. I don't want to damage this until this is tight. So I think I'll do that. This will keep junk from falling down in there. Pro stuff, boys. Next part of the instructions is to go ahead and slip this guy on. I'm going to loosen these up as much as I can get them loose. You guys know me. Kind of line this thing up. You can spin it. It takes a little bit of effort. It's not too hard. It looks like I might have to bring the forks up a little, but I can do that in a second. The directions want us to make sure that there's a clearance between here and this, which there is. That looks good. Right now they said to put on their special nut. You can specify to them if you want any rise in the bars, and I had them at, I think it's like 1.5 inches or something. See, it's a pretty tall rise. It's already a CR high bar, but whatever, maybe I'm old, I just like tall bars. I'm trying to train myself for the May painters. I'm just a few years away, guys. Kind of guesstimating where I want these bars. Jesus, these are tall. I can always pull this stack. I can pull some of this out if I decide I don't want quite as much later. I need to bring this down just a little bit. I've already have lowered the bike like 1.5 inches on the front, so I'm not trying to lower it anymore, but this is, yeah, it's like 1/4 inch. I'm just gonna get them even with the tops. So the only thing left to do now is I need to clamp on the controller. I've actually pulled off, this was the little hot start thing we're using for a manual decompression. Where I had the manual decompression lever sitting, once I had the high, low beam, all that control, I think this was gonna be in the way. So I've got an idea here. So I need to find a new place for this, and what I actually think might work actually pretty well is to put it all the way over here on the other side. All right, so yet things are coming back apart. While I was trying to kind of tighten the bolts up, every time I moved the bars back and forth, the clamp was popping off. Couldn't get this thing to stay on there right. But it's cool. I was talking to the people at Lunatic, and they said we have a new revised version and the skirt's thicker on it, and they reckon that will probably fix it. So they're gonna send that out to me, but it won't be here until next week. So kind of just start building everything the same as if it was on there. Just try to keep rolling with it. Got a new clutch cable. I'd like to go ahead and finish up the Righteous Stunt clutch, lever and perch. I need to explain this a little better. I was kind of looking back at the video when I first installed this thing, and I said, yeah, it's got a bearing in there and some other stuff, but this thing's really, really cool. The whole thing's made out of really nice billet aluminum. You can get crazy customized colors, but what really sets it apart is two different places you can connect the cable in here, and this is really like the key of this thing. Put your clutch cable into the first notch, it's gonna be about the same as the OEM pull. If you go to the mark slightly in, you're gonna get the easy pull, and when you combine that with the fact that this has a bearing inside of here, it's an incredibly easy pull. They built these things for stunt riders, but I'm telling you, everybody needs a clutch lever like this. It's so nice for traffic, for cruising around, riding in the woods. I would say if you're gonna do the woods ones, make sure you get a normal length one. I had a little short one on one of my other bikes before, and you will get some crazy arm pump. I think this is better than even a hydraulic clutch. Now, of course, you're giving up something to gain something, and what you're giving up is a little longer travel. I think a lot of people, they always like, oh, I like having this little friction zone. Yeah, your friction is gonna be slightly longer, but honestly, not only does it make it really easy, I think having a little bit longer friction zone is good because it gives you a lot more sort of finesse and control over it. I've had it one way, I've had it the other way. I think this is so much better. Always a good idea to give the new cables a bit of lube before you stick them on. What I like to do is really turn the bars and find where's the tightest spot. So this is the loosest spot. So this is actually the tightest spot right here. Make sure you have a little something in there. It doesn't have to be crazy. Jam down our little jammer. This only ever needs to be finger tight because you want to be able to adjust this if you're out riding. Oh yeah, that feels great. Total pinky clutch right here, guys. We banging up some one fingers. In one of the previous videos, we put the MotoMaster Super Mega brakes on. That's what I'm gonna call them, with the core moto brake lines. I never ended up bleeding them out because I needed to get something that was gonna work the brake lights switch, and I thought I might have to get one of those banjo bolts with the switch on there. Actually, it turns out MotoMaster themselves have a little part here. It's a little switcher that's gonna work almost like an OEM. I'm gonna fall. It's gonna work almost like an OEM deal where it's gonna have a little clicker on here. And then it just gives us two wires here that we'll wire up later when we add the dual sport kit. Brake off, brake on, brake off, brake on. Now we can bleed the brakes. I got a little .4 fluid here. That comes with bleeding brakes. There's a couple different ways you can do it. The simplest way is you pump this thing up, crack the bottom open while you're holding it in, let go, that whole thing. There's this hand pump system you can get. I know a lot of the stunt guys do this weird reverse bleed thing. That's pretty cool too. I've got an air compressor. I bought one of these tools a few years back. It's like 80 bucks or so for one of these. You'll never want to bleed brakes any other way once you've used one of these things. We're just gonna suck all the fluid right through this thing. And really, when everything's new like this, there's so much air in the system, it's a complete pain to do it any other way. You have to have the cap on really to do this, but if you pull it and drop it fast, you can shoot a couple little bubbles out. I got a couple more to get out, and you gotta settle this thing. You gotta make sure it's 100%. Don't settle for a little bubble in there. A little air bubble turns into a big air bubble when it gets hot, and then you got a problem. Might as well go and do the rear now. I did have to jump ahead to something that's gonna come in a future video with the dual sport kit. I'll reveal what that is when we get there. I don't even know, I'm acting like it's a secret. I mean, all my Patreons, they've seen all this stuff. And I'm pretty sure I've even posted something in my Instagram. But you know, if you don't follow me on Instagram or follow my Patreon, where you can see these videos early, ad-free, and quite a bit extended, then you should really jump on there. That's like the most premium experience. But at least nothing else, make sure you're also following my Instagram because I'm always posting stuff about this. This is the banjo bolt pressure switch thing. This rear brake reservoir kind of hangs onto the actual fairing. It sits way up here and it's inside the fairing here, and it's very nice and protected, but it means it's kind of a pain while I'm trying to fill it. I was just gonna kind of temporarily zip tie it up while I filled it up, but you know what? Let's just get crazy with it. let's just put the rear fender on. UFO's pretty much the only people really left making plastics for this thing, and unfortunately they know it. They're a little proud of these guys. It's still not crazy expensive. I mean, they're still pretty reasonable, all things considered, but they definitely charge a little more than I would have normally paid for one of these. Also, as I found out, this rear tail light here is literally just the cover. There's no guts in this thing. But I've got an idea for that. We'll cover that down the road when we start putting the electrics on this video, which is I think the starting next video. I guess if you didn't know at this point too, I've gone with red and white, basically the OEM colors. A couple of metal tab things that need to go from one to the other. So wiring this thing was modified at one point for some DC wiring, but it was done pretty crap, or it's gotten crap since then. I don't know. It sucks. So look at this. Even with this piece on there and this bolted down, like the frame, this is a waste of time. You know what? I had to put it on anyway. Whatever. It wasn't a waste of time. I'm glad I did it, and I'm proud of myself. I'm the smartest guy I know. Pedal is super firm now. Both brakes work. But you know, I got a rear fender on. I kind of want to put the front fender on now too. But it doesn't have any holes. What gives? I'm giving this 0 stars on Amazon. When I bought this, that's actually a complaint I saw from several people. It said it doesn't come with holes. You gotta drill your own holes, guy. You can kind of get the fender up on here, and if I have it too far back, it will hit the frame, which you don't want. You want it to be really close to the frame, but you don't want it touching. About right. I'm gonna take this permanent marker, Sharpie here, because it's not that permanent on this plastic. I can wipe it right off. I'm just gonna make a little mark right here. A couple little, can you even see them on there? A couple little marks. Here is the factory fender, and I think the guy tried to, like, what's that stuff called? The dip stuff. Yeah, that's what this crap is. Garbage as this fender is, it does tell us where our holes need to be. I could try to like make a template with this thing, but honestly, if you just kind of come up here and see where my holes were on here, and I can try to line this up about. Just close, but no touchy. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw my hand guards on. I bought these a long time ago. I think I was originally bought these to put in my Grom back in the day, and I thought they look kind of goofy, but I like these kind of open style ones, just my preference. They're from Moose Racing. I remember we got this crazy mount. These things essentially shouldn't really twist. Got this little slider that'll go on the end. It's from Slide Moto makes this. It's even got a little indention here that fits into there. This is just meant to be a bar end slider that could also work with a set of hand guards. Pretty nice bit of kit there. Be sure to check them out. They hooked me up with this as well. 3 holes in here. Pretty close to this one right here. We're not quite there. I'm gonna show you something to do with hand guards that I actually do even when I'm not doing this, to try to make sure everything lines up right. Out there, we're just gonna. Now for the one on the throttle side, you always have to be for sure that you're not touching the throttle tube or the grip. Like in the 70s yesterday, it was actually pretty nice, and now it's in the 50s and it's raining. It's that weird time of year where it's like nice to cold, nice to cold. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, will this ever stop? And finally it does when it becomes 1,000,000 degrees outside. That's coming real soon, look forward to that. As you can see, the bike has a tank and a seat on it right now. That's just temporary. I was just kind of sizing some stuff up. That's not even the seat that's gonna go on it. This is that big seat concept seat. Oh yeah, also I'm trying to work with the car in here right now. Just a few quick things I want to finish up before I end this video. I did find out something pretty interesting though, sticking the tank on. Fun fact, when I bought this bike, there was no bolts holding the tank in. It was just a little rubber strap here and the seat kind of mashing it down. It was a quality work there. When I bought these little rubber hoses on the interweb, they all had pretty good reviews. The only thing I ever saw people complain about was this pipe, a crossover pipe between the 2 radiators. And people said, oh, it's just way too thick. And then I found out why. When you try to put the tank on, there's just no room for this thing in there. Now I thought maybe I could get a smaller one, stick it in this little crossover. It just goes from end to end. But instead, I just put some little caps on here. The biggest thing about having a crossover between the 2 of these is when you're initially purging the system of air. I don't know, maybe I'm a moron and I should run this thing, and you can tell me why in the comments, but we're not gonna run it. Save and wait. The brake line is touching the handguard right here, and this is more towards the end where it travels. This part kind of flexes up and down, but there is a good chance that this is going to be kind of rubbing on here over time. I have an idea. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of tape around here, and to make it look pretty, and I think it might last a longer too, I've got some of this, which is like 3M vinyl, like black tape. I don't know if this is the best idea. I don't know how this is going to hold up, but you know, if I'm wrong, I'll just take the tape back off. I don't know. I'm not like these other moto vloggers who wrap their stuff constantly. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, that might work all right. And I was pretty proud of myself at how close I got this fender to the frame. But because I'm only a pretend smart guy, I forgot to make sure it's gonna clear guards. I had to get new guards because just like everything else on the bike, they were like chewed up and torn up. This bike's had a hard life. Stop for a moment and appreciate the hell this bike has been through before I got it. Your hole, are you too good for your hole? Answer me. I feel even cooler now. The chain guide, kind of an interesting setup. The whole thing is like plastic, and then you have this like rubber thing that goes in the middle here, which I believe goes like this. Oh, that's a nice noise. It has a wear indicator on here. Look at this. You may remember I bought one of these. This has come in handy so flipping much. I'll find some hardware that makes sense, try to get all matching stuff. I went and grabbed the old one, trying to figure out what the hardware was that goes in here, and it still has it on here, but remember that black thing I showed you goes at the bottom, the little wear mark thing here? Well, it's completely missing off of this one. You can see someone's just really clamped this thing down tight. And if I look in here, I can see there's actually wear marks on the bolts in here where clearly the chain was riding. We need to throw our case saver back on, which just like everything else has got gouging and stuff in it. I think it had like one bolt on halfway and one was missing. Look at this. Oh, yep. This is another one of those parts that had gone to we-coat it. 520, I have an X-ring. Always to be safe, I end up buying these chains a little longer than I think I need them. You know, 3 fingers in there. Not talking about your sister. Drill these 2 rivets out. I think that would do it for us. I've clamped part of it that's gonna come off. We're not gonna use anyway, so like if I clamp it too tight and mar it up, it doesn't matter. This bit down here is still free. I've kind of just wrapped this up. This is mainly just because I don't want all this metal stuff to end up getting all over this, and it's so sticky right now, it'll stick to it really well. But what we need to do is grind down these 2 rivets till they're basically flush with the whole thing. Just grind it up, get my safety squints on. And if you're having to like crank on it, stop, because you need to grind the head down a little more. It should be pretty easy to press out. There we go. I always like to roll the part I'm going to be working on right over the sprocket. Just kind of helps hold it in place, especially if you put it somewhere like that. You can see both ends aren't trying to run away from each other. These chains will typically come with both a rivet and a clip style of master links. I'm probably gonna go with the clip one. I may end up putting a dirt setup back on here at some point, which probably will end up running a bigger sprocket and means I'll need a bigger, longer chain. I cannot find it. Normally these things come with a little packet of grease, and this one did, that you would smear all over this. It's the same kind of grease that's in the rollers. And you gotta remember, once the O-rings are on and this is compressed in there, it's not like you can just spray. That's not gonna really get in there. You gotta make sure you put some good grease on this now. 4 little O-rings, so I'm gonna stick 2 of them on down here. Definitely put too much grease on here. And it's going to, yeah, it's gonna puke out a little bit. But hey, you know what? That's fine. It already comes with way too much anyway. These things are just way overcoated for my liking. Stick 2 more O-rings on. The other side of the link here will have riding on one side and not riding on the other. And you may think, oh, I'm gonna put the non-riding side out because that'll look cool. But one, well, all your other links have the riding out, so that's not really, it's kind of weird. 2, you gotta remember this is rotating against a O-ring, so having the etching where the riding is would cause some wear. It's difficult to show, but what I'm actually doing here is I'm using the tool just to slightly press on this. Should be able to slip the clip in there now. Oh, there we go, it started to go. At this point I may be able to pull this off. A lot of dirt bike guys will go, I have 3 fingers in here, which is actually pretty reasonable for most of these things. All right, lock the tool down. I'll make the other side the same gap. So a lot of street bike chains will have a lot more tighter sort of tolerances and other things because there's less travel in it. There's a lot of travel in this thing. You really got to pay attention to it. If anything, it would almost be better for it to be a little too loose than tight. Both are not good. I see so many guys with Supermoto bikes running around with this thing, you know, especially the bike life guys. Sorry, no offense, but you guys are like running around with your chains looking banjo tight with your 120-pound self sitting on it. So when you hop off a curb or jump off a loading dock, I can't imagine what that does to the countershaft sprocket up there. That whole countershaft up there is under insane pressure when they do that. Final thing I'm going to put on here in this video is going to be some of these Slide Moto axle sliders. Remember we put the little sliders on the front of our hand guards earlier, which was awesome, but they also hooked me up with a set of just full-on axle sliders. Now, I won't say the name of the brand of the ones that were on here, but you know, if you may have noticed, they didn't hold up too well. They looked pretty rough. These ones look really nice here. I love that they have red anodizing on it. This red anodizing is the exact same color as all the red anodized parts on here. One end is a fixed in place kind of nut bolt thing, which is better. When you're doing these and both ends are threaded, it's always a little bit difficult to get them just right. So much appreciated. And then the other end is a locking nut on there. Very nice, solid. This will keep the axles off the ground. You know, on a Supermoto bike, hand guards with sliders on the ends and axle sliders are kind of like your frame sliders, you know, you would be seen on like a street bike. Not only does this help protect your equipment, but it's really, if you go to the track, most tracks are going to require these things. These feel very solid, by the way. I think they're going to hold up pretty nice. Unscrew one end, screw. Throw part of it on the ground, no worries. One end is clearly meant to sit inside of that axle right there, and the other end is a little thinner. That'll sit inside the nut. So I'm going to take this whole rod like this, go over to the other side, stick her in. If you haven't figured out what to do at this point, I don't know if there's any helping you. Snug. No reason to go any beyond that. Right, so I think we got a good amount done today. Actually over 2-3 days when I was filming this. Hopefully by next video, our new clamp will be here so we can pop that top thing off, pop the new one on, and give that stabilizer a good wiggle. Otherwise, yeah, next video, we'll go ahead and get the stator in it, the gas tank on it, at least just temporarily, electrical stuff set up, at least enough to make sure it's sparking and like some of the factory electronics work, and we should hear it start.